Tonight, the Indigenous Identity Fraud Summit wraps up in Winnipeg today.
This past year, I've been noticing it this way. We don't know where it's coming. It's coming from the east, northeast.
While fire rages in Western Canada, the Mohawk community of Kahnawake have another environmental threat to worry about.
I had a lot of emotions going through me. I was mentally preparing myself for either losing and winning.
And we hear from the newest winner of Canada's Got Talent. Good evening, I'm Chris Nashkate. Welcome to APTN National News. In Winnipeg, the trial of a non-Indigenous man that admitted to killing 4 Indigenous women continues. Jeremy Skibicki's defense team are claiming he is not criminally responsible due to a mental illness. But the Crown wants to prove he was intentional, and this is not an NCR case. They called his neighbors and a worker at an inner-city shelter to testify today. With more, here is TR Wheatley and a warning. Some details in this report are disturbing.
There were 4 Crown witnesses inside the courtroom on Wednesday. 3 of the men were living in the same apartment building with Jeremy Skibicki back in the spring of 2022. The 4th was a worker from the Indigenous-run homeless shelter, Kahnawake. Ronald Norman works at the shelter. He told the court he called police right after seeing media reports about Skibicki's arrest in May 2022 after Rebecca Contreras' partial remains were found. Norman said that Skibicki stood out at the shelter saying he didn't fit in, clothes were clean, well shaved. He also said he had 2 interactions with Skibicki that spring. During one of those conversations, Skibicki told him he didn't need to be there. He had his own place. He came to stalk his victims. Norman also told the court that comment didn't mean anything to him because the shelter has a lot of clients that are often in a psychosis state. The Crown asked if Skibicki was in a psychotic state during that encounter, to which he replied no. Norman was also asked if he had seen any of the women in the shelter before, and he said he saw Morgan Harris and Rebecca Contreras a few times. As for the neighbors of Skibicki, all questions related to May 15. Court heard that 2 of the men lived on the main floor of the building. The other lived next door to Skibicki on the 2nd floor and shared a wall. Alan Cohen told court his apartment was on the main floor facing the back of the building. He said police interviewed him on May 17. Cohen said he saw Skibicki around 11 p.m. on May 15 dumping clothes into a garbage bin. The other main floor tenant, Alan McKay, told court he first met Skibicki in November 2021. Skibicki was helping the son of the owner of the building renovate a suite. Soon after, Skibicki moved into Suite 5. McKay told court he was woken up on May 15 by boots stomping up the stairs. McKay testified he went in the hall and saw Skibicki and asked him what he was doing, and that Skibicki replied he was taking out the garbage. McKay told him to do it in the daytime because he was being too loud. Once back in his suite, McKay emailed the property manager about the incident. The other neighbor, Richard Patku, testified that between the hours of 1:38 a.m. and 11:45 a.m. on the morning of May 15, he heard the shower turn on and off up to 5 times next door in Skibicki's apartment. The trial continues this week with more Crown witnesses. TR Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
For more on this trial, head over to aptnnews.ca for stories by our web reporter, Kathleen Martins. And if you are triggered by this report, supports are available 24/7 through the MMIWG2S support line. That number is 1-844-413-6649. The Indigenous Identity Fraud Summit wrapped up today in Winnipeg. It brought together some First Nations, Inuit, and Red River Métis leaders from across the country to discuss the pervasive issue. Today, leaders in attendance passed 2 support resolutions and a declaration on Indigenous identity fraud. The first resolution calls on the Canadian government and the Métis National Council to withdraw their support of Bill C-53. The second calls leaders who were in attendance to denounce, quote, illegitimate identity claims, end quote, of the Nunatsiavut Community Council. A summit declaration on Indigenous identity fraud was also signed. It condemns any individual or group falsely claiming an Indigenous identity and requests all institutions, organizations, and levels of government to help end the appropriation. Nunatsiavut Government President Johan Lamp was one signator of the declaration.
We are only one Inuit group from the ITK, and there are 4 regions, the Inuvialuit, the Nunavik, and we are the Nunatsiavut Government. And we have to go to the table to discuss the issues that are coming from this Indigenous Identity Fraud Summit. But it is not over today. But we will continue to wake up with the sun and most certainly to fight for our people.
And with the Indigenous Identity Fraud Summit wrapping up in Winnipeg on Wednesday, many were denied from applying to attend the conference. That included the Métis Nation of Ontario and Métis Nation of Alberta. We are joined now by Kim Bowden, National Vice Chief of Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, who was also denied from attending the conference. Thank you for joining us, Vice Chief Bowden. How are you feeling about not being able to register for the Indigenous Identity Fraud Summit?
I was very disappointed, I must say. I did put 3 inquiries in. Initially, when the news release was put out, I contacted them immediately because I wanted to attend. And I tried, firstly, it was the Métis, Manitoba Métis, and then I tried the Ontario Chiefs, and I went back again. There was a different contact, mind you, but came down that I didn't hear from anybody. And then the Friday, they got a hold of me and they just said, "Oh, you can watch it on streaming." That's all they said, is I could watch it.
Both the Métis Nation of Ontario and Métis Nation of Alberta weren't invited as well. What is your reaction to this?
Well, if they're truly, truly serious about identity fraud, we should have been all invited. We should have had all of us an opportunity to address this important issue. The Congress of Aboriginal People, we believe the same thing. It is important, and we want our voices heard. And even today, what happened was that, you know, some of the connections I made that were when they were making presentations today, these are my people they were talking about on both sides of my family, and that's why I was so disappointed. The Manitoba Métis, well, they talked about the history. They talked about their history in terms of their connections to the people in the United States, you know, just on the border there in North Dakota. Well, I mean, they were talking about my grandparents, my grandmother on my dad's side. And then on the other side, they talked about Felix Calahoo, who was part of they called him part of the Big Five, who built the Métis settlements. Well, that was my great-great-grandfather's son. So, you know, I mean, my great-great-grandfather signed the treaty, and we're a band that was wiped completely out by the federal government in 1958. So I was pretty disappointed. But, you know, on a larger context, this is a huge discussion that we should all be having, and doing what they're doing. I also believe it divides us more. And I heard some of the comments made by Chartrand, for example, David Chartrand, when he talked about, well, kind of anticipating a response by either CAP or whoever, or NWAC. I don't know what he was thinking, but yeah. But let's have a real discussion. That's what I'd like to have.
How did you feel being shut out and then just watching on the sidelines from home on the YouTube channel and seeing what was discussed? How did it make you feel?
I felt very uncomfortable. To me, there was part of disinformation campaign that was going on, and I put this at the feet of the federal government as well, because they turned around and they created this distinction-based policy approach. David Chartrand and the Manitoba Métis, they took steps in dividing all of us. So, you know, for them to come around and say that they're the heroes, well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, they're attacking a lot of our constituents. They're attacking some of our communities throughout Canada. And I don't want to take away, there is fraud. I want to say that too. We know that. We acknowledge that. But why can't we have a really solid discussion about it and address it as a people, as nations going forward? I mean, Daniels brought that out, right? We won Daniels. CAP put that forward. And I might add that AFN, MNC even was there battling it out, saying that, They wanted to, they want nothing to do with it, and they acted as interveners.
Well, Vice Chief Bowden, thank you for your time. We'll have to leave it there. This is definitely a topic that we can continue to cover day in and day out, but we'll leave it there. Thank you for your time, Vice Chief.
I'd absolutely like to continue this discussion. Thank you for having me.
Today, the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs called, then cancelled, a press conference about a violent incident at a Winnipeg grocery store last night. 2 weeks ago, the same store was under fire after an employee allegedly assaulted an Indigenous woman suspected of shoplifting. On Tuesday at 6:40 p.m., officers were called to the food fair on the 900 block of Portage Avenue. A 17-year-old male was accused of assaulting 3 employees with brass knuckles. The employees were transported to hospital with upper body injuries. The AMC scheduled a news conference for Wednesday morning with the food fair owners to address the violence, but cancelled it 2 hours beforehand without an explanation. After an employee allegedly assaulted a First Nations woman, AMC terminated their Jordan's Principle food voucher program with the store. AMC said the owners agreed to implement cultural sensitivity training for staff and draft a shoplifting policy. When we return, we continue our coverage in Kahnawake and the issue of years of air pollution in the area. Welcome back. The Mohawk territory of Kahnawake faces another environmental threat, air pollution. The Mohawk Council is now investigating as residents are worried about the air they breathe. APTN's Maricela Amador spoke with one of those residents.
Our community has a history of waste waste, the chemical waste.
Kerry Diabo's life in the Mohawk community of Kahnawake has been marked by constant pollution, an issue that has afflicted many in the territory for decades.
We have factories surrounding our community, battery recycling plants that I've known that has been there, I don't even know how long, since I was a kid in high school. We used to suffer from rolling clouds of green smoke, foul smells.
Now, the community is once again facing another environmental challenge, air pollution.
This past year, I've been noticing it out this way. We don't know where it's coming. It's coming from the east, northeast. So we have different industries coming from that end, so we don't know.
He says at night, a foul odor permeates the air.
Everybody's concerned. Kahnawake has a high rate of cancers, different types of diseases associated with contamination.
The Mohawk Council of Kahnawake is now investigating the issue after community members sounded the alarm. They believe the pollution could be coming from an industrial park in neighboring St. Catherine. Most worrying?
And you can see on this the relationship, just the proximity with TerraPure, the battery plant, and how it could be a nuisance at times.
The park is adjacent to the local high school, Kahnawake Survival School.
There was concerns. It was brought to our attention via an email last week about issues with the battery recycling plant. I think it's called TerraPure. And we reached out immediately to KIPO to ensure that our students were safe. KIPO responded immediately, telling us that there was no imminent danger at the school itself.
However, the Kahnawake Environment Protection Office, or KIPO, did record spikes in poor quality in the community around the same time the complaints were coming in. In a statement to APTN, TerraPure says, "We only became aware of concerns in the community late last week and immediately reached out to a representative to arrange a meeting. That meeting has yet to take place."
In 2008, the school was relocated closer to the 132 down this way.
According to Calvert, air pollution near the high school is nothing new. In fact, prior to 2008, the problem was worse because Survival School was then located even closer to the industrial park.
When I first started here, it was in 2003, I saw some of the issues. A lot of it was coming from Associated Steel with their the car crushing. There's all day you hear the cars going through, but every now and then, there'd be a small fire or something, and there was a noticeable odor.
Chief Cody Diabo is in charge of the environment portfolio at Council. He says there have always been concerns about the school's proximity to the industrial park in St. Catherine.
There's been times where the school had to be sort of let out the students, sent home because of either air quality in the area, just from the smell and different sites of, the different activities that were going on there.
In terms of this current situation, Chief Diabo says that the Mohawk Council has not been able to determine where the air pollution is coming from. According to the chief, the council has purchased new air quality monitors.
As soon as those get into the territory and we set them up, we'll be able to give more data in terms of what it is. So right now, all we can do is either speculate or just say maybe there's a link and it's warranting further investigation.
In a statement to APTN, the City of St. Catherine says environmental protection is a priority. We take these concerns seriously and intend to shed light on this issue. In addition to our internal efforts, a meeting between the City of St. Catherine and Kahnawake officials is also scheduled to take place in the very near future.
It's going to take everybody to solve sort of these issues. Nobody's going to be able to do it in silos, but we need to share that information and work together, but we need to build a relationship first. The Environment Ministry, we in general on sort of the consultation end, which I'm involved in for other projects and things like that, needs a lot of work.
The chief notes that the relationship with Quebec also needs improvement in order to better address environmental issues together.
We have to clean up. There's a push. I'm not calling it a campaign. There's a push now. The community's taking matters into their own hands, and we're cleaning up our community.
However, he believes that currently not enough is being done to remediate the situation. Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Kahnawake, Quebec.
This past weekend, several communities across the north were subject to internet outages thanks to wildfires in British Columbia and the Northwest Territories. Despite being far away from the fires, the Yukon lost its full internet for a full 24 hours. And as Sarah Connors tells us, that had some thinking about connectivity when it comes to wildfires.
For days, raging wildfires near the communities of Fort Nelson, BC and Fort Liard in the NWT have caused concern and anxiety for many. On Friday evening, the fires burned through 2 fiber lines in Fort Nelson and southwestern NWT, causing internet and phone outages across the north, including the Yukon. The territory's outage lasted about 24 hours and was restored Saturday evening.
A perfect storm of situations happened for this major of an outage in northern Canada.
Telecommunications operator Northwest Tel says it has geographically diverse fiber routes that come out of northern Canada, but both were impacted within a few hours of each other.
If they would have happened like a day apart or several more hours apart, we wouldn't have been in the situation we were.
Our whole society is dependent on technology, right? In these times.
The chief of the Kwanlin Dun First Nation and Whitehorse says staff and community safety officers went door to door checking on citizens. While no major issues arose from the outage, he's not eliminating the possibility other emergencies may arise this summer. He says the effects of climate change have created a new reality for northern communities, and it's time to be proactive.
How we prepare and respond and adapt to these changing times, because we will see further changes and we will see further emergencies affecting people.
Northwest Tel says another outage like this weekend's is unlikely to happen, but Yukon Government Emergency Coordination Center says it's important to be prepared in case another outage or emergency happens in the future.
Because those wildfires still are burning around Highway 97 and up in the NWT, so it's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
An Indigenous woman in Saskatchewan has made history. We'll tell you how when we return. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. From Doig River First Nation in northern British Columbia, Nearby fires make it difficult to tell where the smoke ends and the clouds begin. Thank you to Brittany Brinkworth for this incredible photo. We hope you and your family are safe and well. Send your pictures to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Here now is a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. In Newfoundland, St. John's 12, Charlottetown 21 in PEI. Northern Quebec, in Nuujauak 2, La Grande River 12. Southern Quebec, Val-d'Or 20, Quebec City 21. Southern Ontario, North Bay 21, Toronto 23 with clouds. Northern Ontario, Big Trout Lake 17, Thunder Bay 11. Northern Manitoba, Churchill 9, Thompson 15. To the south, Barons River 16, Winnipeg 17 with clouds. Saskatoon 18, Regina 19. Stony Rapids 11, La Ronge 12. Northern Alberta, Fort Chipewyan 9, Fort McMurray 12. Southern Alberta, Edmonton 12, Red Deer 15. In BC, Quesnel 11, Vancouver 16 with clouds. Dease Lake 11, Smithers 11 with a little bit of sun. Old Crow 9, Mayo 16. And in the Northwest Territories, Wati 10, Fort Simpson 17 plus. Inuvik 5 and Colville Lake 11. Cambridge Bay 1, Chesterfield -1. And Resolute -1, Aglulik -5. Thousands from across this country cheered in unison last night as Canada's Got Talent crowned their winner. Rebecca Strong, a young singer from Saskatchewan, made history as the first ever Indigenous woman to win the competition. And she is also now $1 million richer. APTN video journalist Rachel May spoke with Rebecca about her big win and what's next for her.
Last night, Rebecca Strong from Prince Albert took the Canada's Got Talent stage by storm with her performance of Rolling in the Deep by Adele. Strong said that when she got to the final two, she had to remind herself to take a deep breath.
I had a lot of emotions going through me. I was mentally preparing myself for either losing and winning, but I was just happy to be up there.
As the first Indigenous woman to ever win Canada's Got Talent, Strong says she hopes Indigenous youth take this as a sign they can accomplish their dreams.
But I just want my Indigenous youth to change the world and become mainstream. And I want everyone to incorporate their culture in all of their art and be proud of where they come from.
As for what she's planning to spend the $1 million on, first a hot pink truck, and then helping her family pursue their dreams.
A recording studio is very important. I want to be able to record my music. And my sister and my dad's, they make music as well. So that'd be very awesome that I could help them as well.
Strong says she's hoping to record a debut album with original songs as soon as she can, then hit the road for a tour. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Thank you, Rachel, and a big congratulations to Rebecca Strong and her family. That's all the time we have for today's APTN National Newscast. We'll be back again for your daytime newscast tomorrow at 12 p.m. Winnipeg time. Hi, miigwech and Marcy Cho for watching, and have a good evening.